So whenever I discuss ambition with people, ambitions and aspirations and dreams, I find that the concept of freedom in some cases is often misunderstood because there are many people who, when you speak to them, they'll tell you that their goal, their dream is to be free, is to be truly free. And then that brings me ultimately to the concept of freedom. There are different forms of freedom, but sometimes we don't recognize which type of freedom we should be aspiring for, we should be aspiring to. And I'm going to link it to the labor markets and employment and things like that. So a couple of years ago, I was opportune to work for a construction firm many years ago. And when I got there, the first thing I noticed was the car park. There were very few cars in the car park, and not because the environment had functional or very effective public transportation system. So it was for me, it was the first red flag. There were very few cars, and most of the cars that were there were, well, I would say they had lived life, and they were struggling cars. And to me, this was an evidence that this place was a place that people were just struggling to get by. Well, I didn't stay there very long, but it was a red flag for me. I didn't even know why it was a red flag for me, but I think it's somewhere in my head. The car park is a representation of how comfortable the employees are in the place. In a separate discussion with somebody, a friend of mine who was transferring his employment from a federal government institution to a state government institution, he was telling me his experience when he spoke to his elder sister. And he's told his older sister, oh, he's moving from the federal institution to the state institution, and he will be better paid and things like that. And she was asking him why not going to the private sector, and his response was, well, there's job security here. And then his sister's response to him was, well, are you securing poverty? Now, this was a very strong statement, right? Because according to her, well, people only get well in that line of work if they grow up to director level or one thing or the other where they have access to some things. I'm not going into that. But anyways, that made me think about freedom, right? Because for most people, when they are looking for employment, what they are moving away from or what they are seeking is freedom to, or sorry, as the case may be, freedom from. So there are two types of freedom in this context. There's freedom from and freedom to. So freedom from, which means you're running away from something. So most of the people you find in very unkind employment situations are seeking freedom from starvation. So you find, for instance, there are many young people who finish school, who leave school, and then who, after passing through school, struggle for many months or even many years to find employment. And when they do find employment, they may sometimes find themselves with cruel employers, but they cannot leave. The reason they cannot leave is that living implies that you're going to starve. And so what it means is that while they can feed themselves, while they can transport themselves, they are not free, right? They only have freedom from poverty, but they're not free to do whatever it is that they want. They're not free to chase maybe some hedonistic cravings that they have. They are only free from starvation. What they should be aspiring to is freedom to. So freedom to go wherever you want, freedom to do whatever you want, freedom to acquire whatever you desire, freedom to vote who you like, freedom to speak what you want, right? Freedom of speech, so to speak. So that's the other type of freedom that different types of employment or sustenance can give you. So there's again where I'm going is freedom from sometimes help you escape. So in some cases you find people who are entrepreneurs, for instance, suppliers, who are bound to a certain buyer. When they supply, without that company which they supply, they cannot survive. So what you find is that the company that they supply, which is the buyer in this case, tends to dictate the terms of any agreement. So in that context, the supplier has freedom from but doesn't have freedom to. They don't have freedom to choose whether to do business with that supplier or not. That's where I'm going with this. So for most people, where I'm going is as an individual, if you develop job skills related to a particular place of employment, skills related to a specific type of job, except that skill is a highly sought for skill, what you have is you have job skills that constrain you to a certain type of employer or a certain environment. So you only have, and then what that does to you is that it gives your employer power over you. Now, freedom too comes when you develop skills and you increase your options. You develop skills that are cross disciplinary, skills that are beyond one place of employment, skills that give you power within, power to choose whether you stay here, power to choose whether you leave, power to choose whether you will interact with someone or not. And then that only comes when you increase, you expand your options. And as I like to tell people, um, if you have two choices, what you have is a dilemma, which is, for instance, the choice to go to work and face that cruel employer, or the choice to sit at home and starve. That's a dilemma. You need to increase your options so that you have more choices. And how do you increase your options? You increase your options by developing better skills. You increase your options by gathering more information, by expanding your network, by leaving your comfort zone, so to speak. But anyways, the where I'm going is this concept of freedom to and freedom from. It's we recognize it. We comes we encounter it on different spheres of our lives. But I think I'm talking about it from a professional perspective. So there's so many people who want to be free, who even earn a lot of money, for instance. But the moment they leave that place of employment, their life goes to zero because they have not developed the skills, the transferable skills that have value beyond a specific place of work. The skills that give them the capacity to move from one place of employment to another place of employment, from one place of abode to another place of abode. You can move today from one country to another country because you have the freedom to, because you have acquired the skills, the knowledge that allows you to be well sought for. So it's just something I feel like we don't particularly recognize, and that's why many people get sort of trapped in a place where they are. This also applies to relationships. You find yourself where you are dependent on someone for sustenance, and then so it is no longer your choice to be with the person. So, anyways, it's just something that I was considering, and then it plays because even in the political space, some people do not have freedom to vote who they want to vote, because doing so implies that they may not eat. So it's just something that I thought to share.